The health of all living things, people, plants, and animals, depend on the quality of the air around us. It is important for us to protect our environment from pollution. Let's begin by defining pollution. It is the introduction of contaminants into the natural environment that causes adverse change. Pollution can take the form of chemical substances or energy, such as noise, heat, or light. The individual components of pollution can be man-made, or they can be naturally forming contaminants that include the pollen from trees, the dust from fields, and even the natural seepage of gases from underground. Some pollutants can also be formed as a result of lightning or other energy sources, making it impossible to eliminate all pollution sources. Pollution is also caused by the use of natural resources to provide goods and services that are vital to our standard of living. We are willing to tolerate the negative effects in exchange for the benefits. For example, most pollution comes from the burning of fossil fuel, the oil and gas that was formed millions of years ago from decayed plants and animals. The one form of pollution that is usually easy to see, if not identify, is particulate pollution. It can be a combination of any of the pollutants previously discussed and may include droplets of various liquids, dust, or other solid substances. Smoke and ash from a forest fire, dust from harvesting crops and loading or unloading of ships, and even pollen from trees and plants are also forms of particulate pollution. We depend upon oil and gas to fuel the vehicles we drive to school and work each day. When running, our vehicles can emit carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, and particulate matter. But vehicles are involved in forming air pollution before we ever drive them off the lot at the auto dealership. Volatile organic compounds, known as VOCs, and other pollutants were released into the air as those vehicles were being built, painted, and filled with fuel. Some level of pollution continues to be released as those vehicles are operated, serviced, and repaired. Pollutants are also emitted into the atmosphere during the operation of heavy construction equipment. But construction is necessary to build hospitals, office buildings, and manufacturing plants. Most people are willing to endure some level of pollution to maintain their way of life.
Right now it looks like it's going to be dry.
Weather conditions like wind speed, wind direction, and the sun's rays are factors in determining whether nitrogen oxides and volatile organic compounds will form into ozone. When these two compounds react in the lower levels of the atmosphere, and in just the right amounts, and in the presence of sunlight, ground-level ozone is formed. Ozone values are typically higher in the warmer months of the year and in the middle of the afternoon when we have the most direct sunlight. However, ozone can also form in geographic areas like Colorado and Utah that have clear sunny days in winter. Many people confuse ground-level ozone and stratospheric ozone. Ozone at ground level that we breathe is harmful, especially to individuals with reduced respiratory function due to conditions like COPD and asthma. Stratospheric ozone protects the Earth from the harmful effects of the sun's ultraviolet radiation. This is the ozone level we strive to protect by minimizing the use of chlorofluorocarbons, also known as CFCs, in refrigerants and aerosol products. There is no way to eliminate all pollutants, but left unchecked, they can also impact the surrounding environment, including plants, vehicle paints, and even buildings. Federal and state agencies are tasked with making decisions as to whether companies should be given permits that will allow them to release certain pollutants into the air. These permits contain limitations for each pollutant, and during the review of the permit application, scientists determine exactly how much of a pollutant is too much. The Environmental Protection Agency sets health and technology-based standards for pollutants. They then authorize states and large local governments to operate the programs that protect our air, land, and water. The EPA delegates to the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality the ability to conduct day-to-day operations of many environmental programs. The DEQ issues permits to a wide variety of industrial facilities, including power plants, chemical plants, wastewater treatment facilities, landfills, and even the companies that operate the X-ray equipment in your doctor's office. In applying for a permit, companies have to tell DEQ what they intend to manufacture and how much pollution is expected to be emitted during the process. In reviewing the application, DEQ applies both federal and state requirements and considers the potential impacts on the environment. If the projected environmental impact exceeds an acceptable threshold, DEQ will require that a company come up with ways to decrease the amount of pollutants being released into the air. Some facilities are relatively small, and others may be quite large, containing many miles of piping, valves, and other process equipment. Air permits look at each potential location where an emission could occur, and permit engineers include limits for each of them. Many large facilities have multiple permits to reduce the complexity of reviews and make it easier to determine when they are in compliance. Industries with permits are required to keep records of what they are releasing into the environment. If a company exceeds its emission limits, it is then required to fill out numerous reports explaining the event and what pollutant was released and in what quantities. The company can then be subject to enforcement action that may result in monetary fines for violations of the permit.
Like other state environmental agencies, the Louisiana DEQ has more than 40 monitoring stations scattered throughout the state to detect pollutant levels in the ambient air. Data collected from these sites is used to help the state maintain compliance with national ambient air quality standards. The data are also used to report the Air Quality Index, or the AQI, which includes measures of ozone and particulate matter. The index is color-coded, with green being the best possible scenario and purple being the worst. When the air quality range starts moving out of the yellow towards orange, it indicates the air is unhealthy for people in sensitive groups, mainly the very young, the elderly, and people with respiratory problems. Members of the public can learn about daily air quality through the news media and other sources that include EnviroFlash. This free automated subscription system sends text or email messages to subscribers based on how much information they want and how often. The public can go to the DEQ website to sign up for EnviroFlash, as well as visit EPA's Air Now website to access air quality information. In Louisiana, when the air quality begins to approach unhealthy levels, DEQ notifies many industrial facilities that have ozone action plans. These facilities reduce their permitted activities and consequently their release of pollutants that can form ozone. These industries are willing to voluntarily curb production to avoid formation of excess ozone when conditions are favorable for its formation. While industry's impact is significant, we as individuals can impact air quality too. If you sign up for EnviroFlash, you will be notified when air quality approaches an unhealthy level. There are a number of things you can do to protect and improve air quality as well. Avoid putting gas in your car at all until cooler evening times. The process of putting gas in your car may cause volatile organic compounds to be emitted. Filling up when it's cooler reduces the amount of these compounds to be released. Avoid drive-through lanes for fast food or banking. Just 10 seconds of not moving in a line with your engine running burns more fuel and puts more pollutants in the air than simply restarting your engine. And no one sits for only 10 seconds in a busy drive-through. Avoid driving at all by using carpools, taking public transportation, biking, or walking. Take your lunch to work to avoid driving during the hot part of the day when ozone levels begin to rise. Avoid cutting your grass until late evening, closer to when the sun is about to set. Use propane if you want to grill food. It releases less pollution than lighter fluid and charcoal. Conserve energy in your home by turning off lights and unplugging other electronic devices that aren't in use. You can also raise your thermostat just a degree or two to conserve energy. Making the change from traditional 2-cycle lawn equipment to a cleaner burning 4-cycle engine saves you money and is better for the environment. Just as fleets are converting over to use compressed natural gas, as consumers, we should also make energy efficiency one of the top features we look for when purchasing equipment. The ability to maintain good air quality not only protects our health, it also saves us money. When a community's air quality violates federal standards, the Federal Clean Air Act has very strict provisions that can be very costly to businesses and industries, which ultimately extend to consumers. For example, areas violating ozone standards can be required to operate vehicle emissions testing programs. Every vehicle is tested to see if its emissions control equipment is working properly. This program directly costs consumers who pay higher fees for inspections, and the owner of a poorly maintained vehicle may also be required to pay for extensive and costly repairs to restore the vehicle's emissions control equipment. Now you may think we can't make a difference in the quality of the air we breathe, but by joining forces, making small changes, we can make a big difference in our environment. Do your part.
If you are interested in a career that helps to protect the environment, you have many options. Engineers, mechanics, geologists, and chemists are always looking for ways to build, create, and repair things while doing the least amount of damage to the environment. Biologists work to protect the environment while protecting all species of life. They also help measure the impacts of pollution levels on various ecosystems. Meteorologists and climatologists help to explain the reactions that occur in the atmosphere and track pollution levels so that the public has quality information. There are also careers in medicine that focus on treatments for people sensitive to air pollution.